So for our call to worship this morning, I invite us into the pagan and indigenous traditions. The pagan tradition is grounded in a respect and reverence for the natural world. And calling upon the four directions is the usual way to begin any ceremony. Each direction is associated with an element of the natural world and represents some part of our human nature as well. The directions are not seen as separate and isolated, but rather as part of the interdependent system that makes up the world. Here on our altar, we have the symbolic elements for each direction, and we will walk through the meanings associated with each direction. I invite you now to rise, if you are willing and able, as we face each direction and welcome it in today. And if you're not able to rise, I invite you to turn your head in that direction if that's possible, or your hand, something. So my friends, we begin in the east, which is this way, toward the rising sun. The element of the east is air, represented on our altar by a feather. Air and breath give us life. It is the direction of inspiration, the word that literally means to take in air. The east is associated with the mind, with knowledge and learning and intellectual curiosity. Imagine the birds turning and wheeling in the air. Imagine the breeze blowing through your hair. Turning toward the east, we look for a fresh start, an invigorating breath, a new idea. When you're feeling stuck in a rut, beholden to a routine, or if the wind has gone out of your sails, look eastward. We move now around the wheel to the south, facing the back of our sanctuary. The element of the south is fire, and in the southern place on our altar, Thelma will light our flame from our chalice flame. Fire is a transformative force. It is heat and light and powerful change. In the northern hemisphere, it makes sense that we associate the south towards the equator with the warmth of the sun and the heat of the flame. We see birds move south, butterflies move south, whales move south, seeking warmer places when the weather gets cold. And when our internal weather gets cold, turning south is a metaphor for turning toward warmth and daylight, seeking out the changes that will warm us up, get our blood moving, call us out of our winters, out of hibernation, and into action. Continuing around the circle, we now move towards the west. The element of the west is water. And here on our altar, we have water that holds our sacred stones, symbolizing our communal joys and sorrows, and how we gather as individual drops to join in a mighty river. In the West, we're drawn into the experience of our emotions. It is a direction that calls us to self-reflection and self-understanding. Our emotions move in us like water flowing through our lives, sometimes calm and sometimes turbulent, but always flowing. When we dam up our feelings, just like when we dam up a river, the pressure builds until it finds an outlet. If you are seeking to get in touch with your inner life, with your emotions, turn toward the west. And finally, we move now to the north. The element of the north is earth, represented here by a rock from the beach. There is stability and strength in rocks, forming the ground of our earth. The north represents the place that holds us, that allows us time and space to heal and grow, to feel nurtured and respected. It is also the place of embodiment, of connecting with our physical self, with a concrete, tangible world around us. The north calls to you if you are seeking balance, the deep wisdom that lives in your bones, a place of rest and recovery. We have moved through these four directions, giving them shape and meaning. I invite you to contemplate where you feel most drawn today. Is it towards the east with air, breath, and inspiration? Is it towards the south with fire, transformation, and action? Is it towards the west with water, feeling, and reflection? Or is it towards the north with earth, balance, and wisdom?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share a few thoughts on why I belong to this congregation and pledge my financial support. Something you should know about me: I'm a practical person. I have a backpack earthquake kit in my car, and a Swiss Army knife in my purse, and a millennial supply of laundry detergent in my home, because you might need some laundry detergent. This community that we are a part of, this chosen religious community, needs to pay staff and to keep the air conditioning running and to provide the items needed to run a religious education program. For some time after joining, almost 30 years ago, I would say that those practical reasons were the reasons for my annual pledge. The funds were needed on a very practical level. But as the years, the decades roll by, I find myself giving for different reasons. All souls are worthy of respect and love. Along the way to becoming a devout Unitarian, or a devoted Universalist, or a devoted and devout Unitarian Universalist, I came to realize that we have a life-affirming, life-saving message that needs to be made manifest in this broken, hurting world. All life, all truth is one. Our mission calls us to nurture spiritually courageous people who transform the world through justice and compassion. I invite you to join me in supporting the important work of the Canale Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, that of transforming the world through justice and compassion. The offering gives us an opportunity to demonstrate support for the work of this congregation and to express gratitude for the abundance that fills our lives. Thank you for your generosity. Today's offering will now be given and gratefully received.
There weren't any mountains where I grew up in eastern Iowa, but there were rolling hills. I remember my mother frequently quoting a Bible verse reminiscent of the responsive reading we just read. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. When my father was designing our new house, she insisted that he include a picture window in the living room that faced some of those rolling hills. And when there was a talk of clear cutting the grove of trees on our land to maximize tillable acres, she objected, and it didn't happen. I didn't think about it at the time, but my mother must have had a close affinity to nature. She led us on nature walks. She was a bird watcher and carefully kept a log of when she first spotted birds returning after winter. She always had a huge garden, lots of vegetables, but there was always room for flowers: zinnias, marigolds, gladiolas, roses. My passion for flowers surely was born in that garden long ago. In retrospect, this love of nature was a wonderful gift she gave me. When you grow up on a farm, there aren't any neighborhood kids to play with. I had to entertain myself. I spent hours exploring that grove of trees my mother saved, climbed apple trees, played with kittens in the barn, stared at the cattle, they stare back, and rode my bike to the back 40 where you could see for miles. When my then husband and I moved to Thousand Oaks 40 years ago, we were extraordinarily fortunate to be able to buy a house with a backyard adjoining Wildwood Park. Again, I had nature at my back door, and I felt at home. To watch the sun go down, the moon come up, the hawks flying over the canyon, to be able to plant flowers, to watch my kids play outside and hike the trails, to watch a nesting hummingbird, an egret drinking from my pond, or a family of quail strolling across my backyard. I know this enriches my life, and I appreciate it. But nature has its challenging side too. I've battled deer, squirrels, and rabbits, had a baby rattlesnake in my house. I've lost a cat to coyotes, been stung by yellow jackets, struggled with the problems brought on by drought. Excuse me. Years ago, I realized that there's only so much you can do to fight nature. Rather, you have to work with it. No huge lawn, fences to keep the bunnies out of the vegetables, landscape with drought-tolerant plants, plant plants that the wildlife don't like. I had an expensive lesson with deer and roses. I have the luxury to do those things. But I wonder what the attitude of my father, the farmer, was toward nature. Our crops relied on rain for irrigation. Too little, too much, too early, too late, all could be problematic. And heaven forbid that the rains came with strong winds or even more serious hailstorms. These could wipe out the crops. And then there were the insects and the weeds and the plant and animal diseases to contend with. Fortunately, I believe my father's farming practices worked with nature more than the current methods that only rely on growing corn and soybeans. He grew animals whose manure fertilized the crops that fed the animals, and he rotated his crops. Successful farmers have to work with nature, but it must have been a love-hate relationship. Growing up on a farm had many pluses and minuses, but surely the deep down appreciation for nature and recognition of the importance of the care of Mother Earth have to be two of the most important pluses. What is it about being in nature that can bring a sense of peace and, dare I say, spirituality? The answer is elusive, but I believe it's the same phenomenon that is created with mindfulness meditation. It brings you into the present. It gets you out of your head. It humbles you into a sense of awe of its beauty and its power. It makes you recognize the interconnectedness of all life, just as the Native American did. May we hear that same call.
Good morning. Last year when I first chatted with Reverend Nica in an attempt to make a good impression, I declared, I don't come to Sunday service very often. It's not really my thing. Hiking is my spiritual practice. Did I really just say that to our new minister? She took it with practical resilience, and so I added, I figure the church will be here forever. I won't be capable of hiking as long. Well, that was more than Nica could stand. With wisdom and foresight, she vehemently launched into an eloquent and persuasive argument that our faith and all that we stand for is being threatened, and we each need to be vigilant in protecting our values and proselytizing our faith, so that we and those who share our beliefs have sanctuary in a world gone insane. Mind you, this was last summer. Before the election, well, you know. Coming full circle, a year later, while planning a service on nature, Reverend Nica suggested I speak about my spiritual practice, as I had called it, AKA my hikes. Well, here goes. 5 years ago, while I was gallivanting around France, my family had a crisis occur. The recovery would be an extended process and would take all of my focus and energy. I wanted to be healthier, more in balance, and a model for my family and the other people involved. I read spiritual books, practiced mindfulness, improved my diet, and started to exercise. I cut back on work so I could have the time to be completely present. I became a ritualistic type of spiritual person. High on my list of rituals is hiking. It's been life-changing for me because now I love to be active all the time. When I hike, my body works as a system in its finest form. I propel up steep hills, I am attentive to rocks and hazards in my path, I coordinate the timing of my poles with my steps, I listen to the sounds around me. I smell the plants and ocean. I talk with fellow hikers. I see incredible sights. More than in any other activity, I use my entire body, mind, and spirit in an integrated fashion to be fully present. Like every sentient human, I marvel at a rainbow, a grand vista, snow on the mountains, surf at the beach, the feel of mist early in the morning, the warmth of sunset. I don't have grand aspirations with my hiking. I love the Santa Monica Mountains. They're our home. Yes, my spiritual practice is hiking. I feel whole when I'm hiking. I feel one with the earth. In my eyes, nature is the most dramatic proof of a higher power. When I immerse myself in it, I feel part of that bigger something. I feel wrapped up in it, warmed by the trees, the ground, the sky, the sun. It puts life's dramas and traumas into perspective. It helps me be in the moment. I'm a better mother, wife, sister, friend, and congregant because of my hiking. Sunday mornings remain a challenge for me. It's prime hiking time. I want to support Reverend Nica and the fellowship and do my share of spiritual and social vigilance. And I want to be out there hiking. So a year ago, I started a Sunday morning hiking group on Meetup and made a commitment to attend services. We start early so we can hike and still make it to service. In addition, through the group, we promote UU across Meetup. Look at me, proselytizing. Reverend Nica is right. We need to band together and fortify to protect our principles and to support each other. And to do that, I know I need to fortify my spirit by being outdoors. So I pull my resources together, tie my shoes, and hit the trails. And then I come here, happier, healthier, and with renewed energy and determination. I hope you'll join me on the trails sometime.
Thank you both. So today we're celebrating the many ways in which nature heightens our aliveness. And with eclipse fever hitting all around, we realize nature stimulates our imaginations, our senses, soothes our spirits, and can bring joy and healing. Now, ideally, we wanted to hold this service at the foot of a mountain. Rather than just talking about nature, we could actually be in nature. But short of that, I'm grateful that you have the view of the trees and the mountain just up there. And we also wanted to bring a little piece of nature to you here in the sanctuary. So in a moment, you're each going to be receiving a sprig of lavender. Lavender is a magical plant with an intoxicating aroma. It has antiseptic as well as anti-inflammatory properties. It can be used as an insect repellent or as a spice or in teas. It's thought to help relieve stress, anxiety, depression, and insomnia. And it can soothe digestive issues and help relieve pain. In short, it's a multifaceted miracle plant that provides beauty, sustenance, and healing to humans and animals alike, all around the world. So ushers, would you please come up and pass out the lavender? And I invite you, as it passes by, to take one piece of lavender and then pass on the basket. So once you have your piece of lavender, I invite you first to smell it. As you breathe in, smell the lavender, and as you breathe out, take a look at it. Notice its shape, its buds, its color. Notice how it feels in your hands. And after you've breathed it in at least 3 times, I invite you to close your eyes while you hold the lavender close to your nose and breathe. Keep breathing in the scent with long, deep breaths. Imagine with me where this lavender grew. Perhaps it was part of a vast purple field. Imagine the scent of that whole field. Think of the beauty of its purple blooms being brushed by the wind as patterns form in waves of lavender. Imagine the delighted bees buzzing around the lavender, finding nectar to create honey. Envision the rich soil that supports its flowering. Now imagine that you are lying next to that field, surrounded by lavender blooms. You're laying on the ground on soft grass, staring up at the blue sky. Wispy clouds are passing gently above you, and you hear the breeze brushing the lavender softly around you. You are deeply relaxed and entranced. You feel part of the earth, part of the bountiful abundance around you. You are held. How do you feel now? Breathe that in and breathe it out. Now, when you're ready, I invite you to gently open your eyes and feel free to continue holding on to your fragrant piece of the earth as we continue with our service. Nature in all its many forms has the capacity to restore and transform us. I want to tell you a story about a man named Chad. Chad is a tall, strong, middle-aged African-American veteran of the Gulf War and Somalia. Because of his experiences in these wars, he struggles with severe post-traumatic stress disorder. Upon his return from combat, he spent a lot of time in and out of veterans' hospitals, battling depression and even considering suicide. He was also homeless for a while when he simply couldn't find his way. Despite being on heavy medication and being accompanied everywhere by his service dog, Axe, Chad couldn't seem to shake his PTSD. His life beyond war felt hopeless and damaged. And then one day, a friend of his took him fly fishing in the Everglades. Being on the calming water and out in nature for hours on end helped Chad feel more settled. He began to go fishing regularly, and slowly he started to feel well again and shed some of the trauma from his mind and body. And gradually he was able to get off his medication. Much like one of my favorite UU hymns, there was a river flowing through his soul, and it was healing him. In fact, he was so inspired and transformed by his experiences on the river that Chad formed a nonprofit called Soul River. Soul River takes veterans and inner city youth on outdoor excursions to help heal their wounded spirits. His idea was to bring these different populations together to build community, encourage cross-mentoring, and share the experience of being out in nature together. And his goal was not only to create ambassadors and leaders in protecting our wilderness, but to provide struggling youth and veterans with a respite from disconnected and difficult lives. Soul River has been a great success and has given Chad a new sense of purpose in life. And it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. Nature has the capacity to heal broken spirits. In fact, the fields of eco-psychology and ecotherapy have emerged as new healing modalities. As our Unitarian forefather, Henry David Thoreau, said in his epic book, Walden, I believe that there is subtle magnetism in nature, which, if we unconsciously yield to it, will direct us aright. Indeed, it was our transcendentalist Unitarian ancestors like Thoreau and Emerson who proclaimed nature as an expression of the divine. The transcendentalists moved away from biblical interpretations of God alone to a wider view, embracing the majesty and mystery of nature as a representation of the holy. And of course, many indigenous cultures have known this for centuries. When we look at the capacities nature seems to possess, it makes perfect sense to see it as an expression of the divine. There's such a flawless design, interconnectedness, and beauty in nature. And it has the capacity to heal us, to inspire us, to transport us, and to challenge us, like Frances spoke about. In multiple ways, nature can transform us. In fact, Albert Einstein, our great scientist, called on us to look deep into nature, and then you will understand everything better. Apparently, nature sounds like trickling water and whooshing wind, and singing birds can have a soothing effect on our heart rates and hormones. Researchers recommend at least 20 minutes a day listening to the sounds of nature for a positive effect on your health. And if you can't get outside each day, they say that even the sounds on an app on your phone or a white noise machine can simulate these sounds and soothing effects. You may have felt some of that in our nature videos if you came early today and saw our rippling river and our whistling birds. And nature can also transform us through our sense of smell. Smelling the lavender you have in your hands, or pine needles in a forest, or the scent of a beautiful rose is said to boost our immune system and calm our nervous system. And this is why essential oils have such a beneficial effect on our bodies. The scents connect us to nature and change our body chemistry. And I'm guessing many among us have experienced a sense of awe in the face of majestic mountains, large trees, or moonlit starry skies. Beholding the wonders of nature apparently has the effect of increasing compassion and generosity. In fact, I wonder how we'll all feel when we have an opportunity to watch the eclipse this Monday. And I know several of our congregants have gone to places where they can see the full eclipse, but I hear it can move you to tears because of its amazing mystery. Nature fosters in us a sense of connection to something both within and beyond ourselves. And there seems to be something within us that knows we are a part of nature. In fact, in the biophilia hypothesis, scientist E.O. Wilson suggests that the reason nature has such an impact on our health and our healing is because human beings evolved in nature. They are intimately connected to nature. Physically, we are, like all life forms, chemically related to the earth, and the earth is hardwired into our chemistry. E.O. Wilson goes on to say that nature holds the key to our aesthetic, intellectual, cognitive, and even spiritual satisfaction. So no wonder that nature is so enticing to Frances and to Katie. Katie, it seems like something within you recognizes your wild nature and longs to be connected with the natural world that is in you and in all of us. So I invite you all to listen to that calling within yourselves. Not at the expense of coming to services, but in addition, as Katie has now so wonderfully figured out. In fact, having kids out in nature regularly is supposed to improve their attention spans, their creativity, their test scores, and their ability to get along with one another. But no matter what your age, Being out in nature can improve your state of mind and help you work through problems that being stuck indoors or in an urban landscape may hinder. In fact, biologists are now recommending at least 3 consecutive days out in nature each year, unplugged from technology, as a way of renewing our tired spirits, our overstimulated beings, and as a way of resetting our body's biorhythms. As we become increasingly seduced by our busy lives, by technology and by industrial conveniences, my hope is that we'll intentionally get out into nature, that we'll remember nature's restorative properties and our profound connection to the earth. And in so doing, that we will know that we need to protect this wildness, this beauty, in order for our souls to feel whole, if not for us to survive as a species. So as we prepare for our eclipse tomorrow, may we all be filled with curiosity and gratitude for our natural world. It's a gift that's freely available to us, especially here in beautiful Southern California. May we allow nature to nourish and renew us. And may we care for our beloved Gaia, our beautiful earth, our blue boat home, as we care for our nearest and dearest. May it be so.